that they would stand up against the wrongdoings of society. So it shows by itself the fact that Muhammad ﷺ wanted to establish this charter so soon. Shows you the importance of society, how important it is for us not just to sit at home, but to be active and involved in the affairs of this country. Even more so than this charter, we see a story from the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam where there was an agreement. It was known as Hilful Fudul. And in this agreement, what happened, the story goes that there was a man and he was visiting. And when he was visiting Mecca, and as you all may know, of course, at this time, it was run predominantly by trade, but not the trade as we see now with e-commerce and all these different ways. They had to actually travel from one land to the next and bring their goods and trade them and sell them, buy them, take them somewhere else, and that's how they made their profits. So this man, as part of his duties, he came to Mecca, and he came and he was selling some goods, and he sold it to a man. And this man basically said he would pay him back later. So this man, the seller of the goods, he went to this man and he asked him, pay me this money that you owe me, rightfully. But the man, he said one thing or another, and he did not refuse to pay this seller. And he essentially said to him, do what you will, because this man was powerless. He was coming from, at that time, we have a tribal system where the tribes were so much. And if you're coming from outside and you're coming into another tribe and you're not part of that tribe, you don't have the power that you would have. And you don't have the abilities to fight back as much as you can. You don't have the support. And so this man, the one who bought the goods, who refused to pay, he knew this. And so he refused to pay him. And he basically just left him to do as you please. So this man, this was not the times we have today where you pick up the phone, you call the police, you make a police report, maybe they file a criminal case for theft, etc. It was not like that back then, of course. So his complaint, what did he do? He went to the Kaaba. And he went and he complained of his situation to the Quraysh, telling them essentially that, your tribe is great, you're powerful, but look what has happened to me. Look what this man has done to me, not even paying me for the things that I sell him. And so they came to his heed, and they came to help him. And who amongst those people, amongst the Quraysh, amongst the people of Mecca, who came to help? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, holding the leadership position that he held and holding the position in society that he held, do you think that he had to come and participate in this? He could have just looked the other way and said, okay, deal with this, and walked away and dealt with all of the other things in his life. As the busiest man to ever walk the face of this earth, he had so many other responsibilities, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So did he just walk away? Did he just give the cold shoulder to this man and to his situation? No. He went because he understood Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he stood up. He refused to stand for injustice. He refused to stand for oppression. And he refused to allow people to participate in the society and not get what they deserve. And so it shows us the importance of being active and engaged in our society. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us to be engaged in our society. Some people, they may say, well, you say to vote, but what does it matter? I mean, one vote, my vote, it doesn't matter. In Texas, it usually goes conservative. What is my vote going to do? These elections are going to be decided by other people. One vote is nothing, and one vote turns to, this person talks to other people, turns to 10 votes, turns to hundreds of votes, turns to thousands of votes. And before you know it, you have thousands and thousands of people not voting in the election. And so you get an idea of statistics to understand the importance of voting and how small the margin can be at times. I'm going to read you some statistics. From 1976 to January 5th, 2021, more than 85 U.S. Senate elections were decided by less than 3% of all the votes cast. From 1976 until 2022, more than 410 U.S. House elections were decided by less than 3% of the vote. In the year 2016 alone, more than 340 state office elections were decided by fewer than 500 votes. Of those, more than 85 were determined by fewer than 100 votes. Local elections, even more so. For example, in November of 2021, 18 local elections in Ohio, 12 candidate races, and 6 local measures ended up in a tie. Can you imagine, brothers and sisters, how much influence just a few votes can even make? And really at the local level particularly, where it actually, to be frank, influences us more than anyone else. I know the focus tends to be on the national election, and that's fine. But the local leaders, those are the ones that decide so many of the policies for us for day to day. And brothers and sisters, these leaders, these politicians, governors, mayors, senators, House representatives, the president, etc., they all look at the statistics of how people voted. They see how you voted. They know that you are Muslim by probably your name and other ways, and they know what the Muslims has voted for. And they see how many Muslims have voted. So when they see a voter turn out a very, very small fraction percentage of our society, they say, okay, this doesn't matter. Let's not focus on them. They're not going to come vote anyway. So in the next, we'll do whatever we want. We'll oppress whoever we want. We'll do whatever injustice we want. We'll pass whatever measures we want against them. We'll be as Islamic phobic as we choose. We'll spread this more and more. And they're not going to do anything, because when it comes to cast the ballot, they're just going to sit at home. They're just going to sit at home and complain. They're going to talk about it, but they won't do anything about it. So no need to worry about these Muslims. Don't worry about them. And brothers and sisters, another common complaint that people sometimes say, oh, well, there's no candidate that supports all of my views, so, I don't want to vote for any of them. But brothers and sisters, we don't live in a perfect world. No candidate, no person who's running is going to conform, likely is not going to conform to all of your views. No candidate is going to conform to everything that you want. You can't be idealistic. And even if you vote for that person and let's say someone else wins, or even if that person wins and they don't do what they stated they would do, as politicians unfortunately many times do, well, the reality is your job was just to vote based on what you knew, based on your research. The results, brothers and sisters, are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakeel. We depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are responsible for the efforts. There is no doubt about it. So just because you think it's unlikely someone's going to win, just because you think the statistics are against them, just because you read the polls and you say, oh, this candidate has no choice, but this candidate also supporting oppression, this candidate is also supporting injustice, this candidate is also spreading hate against the Muslims. Oh, what's the point in voting for someone else? They're not going to win anyway. No, brothers and sisters. This is not the reality of our deen. We will be held accountable for what we do individually. And of course, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for or what to vote for. But what I do want to say is each and every one of us needs to think deeply. If we have not voted yet, and we are going to vote, think about what the people who are voting for stand for and what they truly do. You don't have to vote like everybody else votes. You don't have to vote for the person that statistically you think, oh, they're going to win. You vote for who you think is the best candidate, who you think will be best for society. And unfortunately, brothers and sisters, so many of us, and I'm just being blunt, they focus, they may have come from overseas, from another country, be it Pakistan, India, be it the Middle East, wherever it may be, and they enjoy keeping up with the politics of this country, with the news of this country, with the ongoings of this country. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Any one of us, even if we're from a different city, as I'm sure many people are here as well, you care for that city. You develop a love for that city or for that country, and you keep up with it. It's close to your heart. That's okay. But what's not okay is you sit on the couch and you debate about that country all day. You look into the politics of that country all day. You see the news all day about it, the political leaders there. What are they saying? Listening to their speeches while neglecting the very country that you are in, while neglecting the very place that you are in, where you live, where your reality is, where your future will be, where the future of your kids will be. And you just neglect it altogether, and you just sit on the couch and you complain. Or you just watch the TV and you watch the debates, whether even if it's locally for any of the politicians, and you just complain, this person, or you laugh, oh, this person does this, but you refuse to take any action against it. And you just sit there and complain and complain and complain. This is not the right way, and this is not the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because if you are letting people know, brothers and sisters, that you don't care about taking action here, they know that you don't care, and they will act accordingly. And brothers and sisters, I don't want to just limit it to voting. Voting is very, very important. And of course, I mention it because we're in the midst of an election right now, election vote. So it's very, very important. And frankly, it's one of the simplest things you can do. But there's other forms of civic engagement as well. And this needs to be done throughout the year, because this is how you get involved in society. So, for example, you have commissions on building roads, for example. You have committees that are formed, which roads to build, where to build them, how to build them, how much should we invest, how much of the money should we put in. You have parking committees for building parking lots and different things of this nature. You have for building bridges. You have for building different things. You have a neighborhood watch committees like we see around here in Coppell. We see sometimes the volunteer police officers going around in their patrol. You can be involved in this. You can be involved in any aspect of the society, but there's so many different aspects we need to be involved in, brothers and sisters. You see, brothers and sisters, we haven't planned well enough. We really have not. We have failed when it's come to our long-term vision. And this is why we are in the position that we are in right now, where Muslims are the minority, of course, but more so Muslims are even oppressed because they're a minority. So many policies are passed against Muslims because people have not gotten engaged enough. If we had the people on the city council, if we had people involved in these committees, if we had people out doing civic engagement, you and I have to ask ourselves, would this situation be the same exact situation that it is right now? I would argue and submit to you that it would not be. And brothers and sisters, the other thing we have to look at is when we look at the examples of the past, you look at people, you look at things like the civil rights movement. Did the civil rights movement happen overnight? Was it just something that woke up and the next day all the different policies and procedures were changed? Did everyone that got to vote over now, did that just happen overnight? No. Civil rights movement, something happened over time. It built up. There were planning. There was organization. There was protest. There was different things that happened. Likewise, you look at, even now, modern day, you look at the LGBTQ plus community, and even just the plus itself tells you so much, that these people before, they were amongst small minority, and they still are amongst, in terms of population, the minority. However, if you look at the power, that the influence, I should say, that they've accumulated now, to the point where in some public school textbooks, this is being taught. It's being put in the actual textbooks. I would ask you to ask yourself, how did this happen? What did they do? And I would submit to you that it was civic engagement. They were very much involved. They went and got involved in their society. They went and talked to their leaders. They went and got on committees. They made sure they were involved in all the different decisions that were being made. When was the last time you went to city council when they were voting on something, or when they were talking about something, to go and voice your vote, how you support or don't support it? You ask, each and every one of us has to ask ourselves that question. When there's something important that comes up, that may influence you, that may influence the Muslims, that may influence many people, do you even know about it? That's number one. Number two, if you know about it, do you take your time to go and do something about it? Because I can guarantee you one thing, brothers and sisters, the people that run this society, the people that make these policies, they care. They round up their people. They get to City Hall. They go and get people elected. They make sure all their people vote. They make sure they're involved because they want to keep society the way it is. They want to keep it in their favor. They don't want to change policies and procedures. If something's going good for them, why would they change it? And so it's up to you and I to get involved in the system. It's up to you and I to go vote. It's up to you and I to be involved in these positions of influence and have some power and exert some influence over these people. And frankly, brothers and sisters, one thing I have to say, and I'm sorry, but I have to be blunt again, one thing that we have overtaken, that has overtaken us as a society is this factor of being lazy or expecting things to happen right away. That's not how things work, and that's certainly not how politics works. When a policy or when a law is passed, do you think that law, they just go and vote on the law and that's it? No, if you go and even read the history of a bill and you see all the different things that have happened to it before it even gets passed, all the different discussions that happen before it gets to the floor to have an actual vote, all the different people in the lobbies, anyone that's been involved in lobby or anyone that's been to the legislature knows all the different lobbyists that are there, talking to the different people, making sure they're involved. So our problem is we think that we can just do something overnight, or we think that we live in a fast food industry where everything is fast, where everything will just happen like this. Do you think, brothers and sisters, that the situation in Palestine, the situation in Gaza, the oppression, the injustice, it just started happening overnight? Do you think they just decided one day we're just going to do this and get away with it? Well, for all of you in this room that know the history of the situation of Palestine and the history of the occupation, you know that's certainly not the case. And it started all the way back from the Zionist movement and all the way back from the lobbying itself. Even at that time, way back, around the time of the World Wars, where they were lobbying where Wiseman, go and look him up and go see the story, where he lobbied a rich Zionist man who supported a state for just Jewish people, who lobbied, who had lots of money. He said, no, I don't want your money. I don't want anything else. I just want this state for the Jewish people, for the Zionists. And so that didn't happen overnight. And then, of course, as we know, and you go and study the history, and I hope you all will study the history if you don't already need it, or at least read about it, you'll see it happened over a period of time. And now we see almost a century later, this occupation is still happening. We see almost a century later, the oppression is still happening. And not just in Gaza, all around the world. So these policies and procedures, brothers and sisters, they don't happen overnight. They don't happen in a few weeks. They don't happen in a few months. They happen over years and years. So we have to always be alert and we have to always be engaged. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Brothers and sisters, how can we expect that the situation in Gaza, a place where it's been the most broadcasted genocide in the history of humanity, a place where we know injustice is present, a place where we know oppression is present, how can we possibly expect this situation to change if we ourselves are not involved in society? If we ourselves are not involved in effecting the very change that is needed in order for this situation to get better. And you and I have to ask ourselves, what have we done for them? Yes, we all see it on social media, whether it's on the news or whether we see the gruesome videos or whether we see the killings, whatever we see the beatings, whenever we see the torture. We've all seen it. We all are aware of it. But the question is, what are you doing about it? Not just for the people of Gaza, for anybody, whether it's locally or internationally, that's oppressed. What are we doing for these people? And brothers and sisters, if you just sit here and you cry about it, or you look about it, and you should cry about it, and you should feel it in your heart. But when is the last time you and I went to a protest? When is the last time you or I have picked up the phone and called our congressman, or called our senator, or called the White House? And you may say to me, oh, well, that's not going to do anything. They're not going to do anything about it, really. They may not do anything about it right now, but if enough of us call, if 1 million Muslims call the capital, what will happen? If we keep calling and calling, if we keep engaging them, if we keep doing it, yes, the change may not happen tomorrow. I know we all want the occupation to stop. I know we all want the change tomorrow. Inshallah, it will come soon. And inshallah, Allah promises Palestine will be free, regardless of what happens, at the timing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses. But we have to make the effort. Yes, Allah will put the results, but first we have to put in the effort. And so, brothers and sisters, you and I have to ask ourselves, what have we done lately and what will we do? It starts, but it does not end with voting. But voting is the most simple action. If you cannot go to the ballot and cast your vote, then I would submit to you that is very sad, and that is the least of things we can do. It's a powerful action, but one of the least. Starts with that, but it doesn't end there. And brothers and sisters, if you complain later, or you can't even vote, or you don't do anything civically involved, then it's as Malcolm X, rahimahullah, said, you are either have a seat at the table, or you're on the menu. And if you don't take action, you're certainly going to be on the menu. Alhamdulillah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. ربنا آتنا في اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وارحمنا ونكون من الخاسرين. وأقيموا الصلاة.